So he was 4 years old, just four. His first seizure happened just before he was four. And like I said, we were in and out of hospitals with different neurologists. And, several of them had no idea what was going on. And they would just try medicine, send him home. And then he would still have seizures. So we went back to the pediatrician and we went back to the hospital. And so, like I said before, after about 2 to 3 weeks of continuous monitoring with the EEG attached to his head, they would just try different medicines and see what worked, what didn't work. And through that, and watching him, because he was on camera the whole time in the hospital, they came up with the diagnosis.
Most of my memories about the diet and like what was happening when I was having seizures really come from what was happening like consistently, like things that we did to prevent seizures. Like at one point we had covered our floor with these little like puzzle piece things that are like foam to prevent my head from hitting the ground, which had happened. I still have like a scar in my eye. I had pretty early on, we got a helmet that I would wear pretty much all the time so that if I fell face forward, I wouldn't be hitting my head. And I remember the helmet, we still have it like in the house just sitting. I covered it with a lot of stickers to make it more personalized. And it started as like, I remember like hating it and not, because when you're in school, it's like embarrassing to like be the kid with the hat, the helmet. There were a lot of questions just because I was in, I was very young, and at that age, like 4, 5, 6, kids, you don't really know yet to not question what certain things. So a lot of people would be like, what are you eating? What's your helmet? And normally I would respond, I'd just say what it was in my head, and then that would probably be the end of it. There were a few times where I remember someone there was like one memory I have where someone was like really mean to me about the food I was eating, and I don't know, that was like really weird to me. There was definitely a lot of times where I was like upset that I couldn't eat what everyone else was eating. More so, it would be when we were with people outside of like my immediate family. So if we were at a dinner in like a restaurant and my whole family was there, or with friends, it would just be kind of awkward to me to have to bring my own food or explain that I can't eat anything off the menu. Um, so there was a lot of situations like that where it was hard to have to do everything separately from everyone else. I have one specific memory. It was like my fourth or fifth birthday party, and everything was going great. It was at like a little gymnastics area, and then it was time to eat pizza and cake. And of course, I couldn't eat the normal pizza and the normal cake that everyone else was eating. And my parents went out of their way. They got like a really nice special cake just for me. And oh well, they made it. They made it. There was nowhere to buy the cake. So my parents made a special cake for me, and it looked great. It was Batman. Batman was my obsession, but it tasted not great. At the time, there was not a lot of resources and recipes known for the diet, so everything was kind of going the first time. So it wasn't great, and I have a memory of being very upset that I couldn't have the normal cake. So sometimes it was hard, but I knew it was important, and I remembered when I couldn't do things like go to a birthday party at all because I would be at risk of having a seizure all the time. And I knew that now I could do that. So it was hard, but I knew why.
So the medicines really weren't working. And he was on three and he couldn't swallow pills. So I think Brandon remembers this, that we had to chase him around the house. He had this little toy car he'd ride around and to get away from us. And we had to hide the medicine in yogurt and food. And it was just, 3 times a day. It was torture. And I have a daughter also. So at the time she was 6 years old, and, she didn't know what was going on. And we read that we read that the Atkins diet first could help. And I was like, that's crazy eating. How's that going to help? But that was really the reason we tried it, because the medicines weren't working. His side effects were, he was tired all the time. He was like shaky. He wasn't concentrating well. We used to play a lot of board games. He couldn't even focus on playing games anymore. He had to drop, I had to pull him out of nursery school because he couldn't stay awake. He was having seizures there, and yeah, it's just terrible, really bad. You name the side effect, he had it. And then he was angry. Do you remember that at all? We used to, my daughter, he had little Matchbox cars he played with, but the medicine made, I think Keppra in particular, made him really angry, and he would just start throwing his little Matchbox cars. And my daughter was very small, even though she was almost 3 years older. And she was like, ah. So we said, Brandon, go to the mean room, or I don't know. We came up with something, and she went and hid and closed herself into the playroom, and he had to go up to his room. But it was a little scary.
My sister, who's 3 years older, I would get upset when she would be eating, the better food that I could not eat. And so she would usually eat in a different room than me a lot of the times. So, which she wasn't a fan of, but she got to sit in front of the TV and eat. So that was like our compromise there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, neither of us were happy with the situation, because I got to drink a lot of soda, which I did not like. And my sister wanted soda. She was not allowed to have all the soda.
The whole thing was a challenge, right? Because we went from being a normal family with 2 kids. We were on vacation when the first seizure happened, actually, a big family vacation. So from that moment on, it all changed. We had to leave our daughter with family there. We took him to the hospital, and I mean, it completely affected my daughter too, because I had to focus all my attention on Brandon, and basically she needs a lot of attention. So I know it was hard on her. We went to therapy. And I did all the food prep, all the cooking. And once he was on the keto diet, we had to measure ketones and blood. There's a lot of testing that goes into it, because it's much more extreme than Atkins. So we did blood work all the time, and we were at the hospital every couple of months. So yeah, the whole family adjusted. My daughter dropped out of basically all of her after school activities, I think, and just wanted to be home after school for whatever reason. I guess she didn't want to be out, because for a few months, we were in the hospital a lot. So she'd come home from school and we were gone at the hospital. So I think whenever she would come home, if the garage door was not open for her, she knew that something was wrong. So yeah, it affected everything. We didn't do family vacations for a while. We couldn't go out to eat anymore. We couldn't eat dinner as a family for a while. So for going on trips, I had a cooler, a big cooler. Actually, they got bigger and bigger as I realized what I needed to bring, and it would take a lot of work. Like I would bring little containers of heavy cream. I had to find like the right bottles that wouldn't leak and fill it up with heavy cream, and ice packs. And I don't know if you remember this, Brandon, but we go to Ocean City, which is a beach town here in New Jersey along the water, every summer. And so we'd go, and I brought sugar-free. They sold snow cones on the boardwalk, and he used to love snow cones. I don't know if you know what that is. It's just like, yeah, ice and syrup, basically. So I would bring different flavor syrups. So I just would buy everything sugar-free that I could find. And we would experiment at home. And I literally would walk down the boardwalk with him. And you don't remember this at all, right? He would say, oh, I want a snow cone. And I'd go and I'd buy the cup of ice from the guy. And I'm like, okay, I got it. And then I'd hide and I'd put the syrup right on top of it and give it to him. So anything to make a child feel like they're, doing what everybody else is doing is a good thing. going on vacations was just a lot of work, but it was worth it just to feel like a regular family and try to do the things that we would have normally done. So it was work for me, but I think it worked out for Brandon. I don't think he noticed too much. And even going through the airport, I remember we flew to Florida once and had all the heavy cream because I didn't want to take a chance on not having it. And I remember at the airport, the TSA guy was like, no, you have too many bottles. You can't bring this much. And I'm like, here's a letter from the neurologist and we're allowed to bring it. And, you know, you're allowed to bring baby formula and things. And he said, well, this is too much. You only need 3 bottles. And I said, really? And I like flipped out on him and I said, well, if the plane is delayed and we're stuck in the airport and he has a seizure on the plane and the plane has to land because of that, and I'm going to get your name. And I started writing his name down. He's like, no, take it all. But yeah, sometimes you just had to get a little feisty to get what you needed. And actually, our plane was delayed. I do remember that. We sat in Florida for several extra hours. So it's a good thing I had so my advice would be bring extra of everything that you think you're going to need.
There were definitely challenges. When everything first started, I couldn't go to school, of course. So that was one thing. And then when I did go back to school, it was a lot of special things that were going on. I would have special meals. I'd have to leave a lot to do certain things. And although I don't remember a ton of it now, I know it was hard at the time to like not be able to just go to school and do like go to extracurricular things after school. Camp. Oh, and camp. Yeah. So when school was over, and I would go to camp. I went to a day camp, and at the time it was at like a local swim club, and it was really hard because obviously even at that young age, you want the like independence of camp, of like going and being like with your friends for the whole day and being away from like your parents. It's like a fun thing to do, but that just wasn't possible for me. And I remember being very upset whenever like my mom would have to come in during lunchtime to give me my special food, and it was just kind of, at the time I thought it was like embarrassing because I couldn't just have like the very simple experience of just leaving home for, you know, a few hours to be with my friends. And it was things like that that were the most challenging, when everyone around me had to like watch and be like, what's happening? And I just felt like I just wanted some time, like to be a normal kid, you know.